solve this problem in a unique way. And the mayors, combined with Cisco and some other peers, all of a sudden you have green buses now being enabled in San Francisco. You have the technology that we're seeing today in Amsterdam enabling remote working locations, which of course we're going to bring all the way to the home and the masses. You have groups each bringing their expertise to solve the problem, not on a transactional level, but on a scale of here's what we admit today, here's where we ought to be, and how do each of us play our role as individual groups and together to achieve those goals. This is very manageable, but it's all enabled by the network and this collaborative approach with Web 2.0 technologies. So it isn't about a technology or a silo, it's how do you do it in total. Once we start measuring it, hold ourselves accountable for it, we are a country that knows how to get results when we make up our mind. It's time to set goals and then determine what each one of our roles are. We'll probably argue out back and forth on how we get there, but we'll arrive at a better solution than any one of us would have done ourselves. And it is because of collaboration in these tools that this is now doable. If I would have presented this a decade ago, I would have said, great idea, great passion, you're right, but we can't solve it yet. People aren't ready, there isn't a market transition or inflection point occurring. Today, there's a transition point, people get it, the citizens around the world gets it. I've talked to all the government leaders. This is on the front of their agenda. They've got to be careful politically when they present it. But if we lead in business, we take the lead on saying now's the time and show people what is the vision of what's possible and why it's different this time, and it will all be network enabled. That's what that conference at VoiceCon should be about. It's about unified communications changing the world, both productivity-wise, healthcare-wise, and the environment.
Over to VoiceCon now and ask Sue a question here. This actually comes, John Chambers mentioned Amsterdam, and this question comes from Thomas in Amsterdam. He wants to know, from a business process perspective, how does a company like Cisco think about addressing its role in climate change?
Right. Well, I mentioned a little bit earlier the concept of the Eco Board, which I'll come back to. I wanted to just add, John, to your ideas about innovation and technology. The one that I'm really excited about is this concept of connected real estate, where real estate developers are beginning to realize that it's not just the physical building, but how do you actually network it and allow it to run more efficiently to save energy, but also to save operating costs. So this is where we start to get the business goals and objectives, as the Vice President mentioned, connected with the environmental objectives. So I just wanted to add that point. With regards to what do you do in a large company the size of Cisco, well, first of all, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have senior leadership. When we say at Cisco that something is going to move to the top of our list of priorities and be one of the top corporate initiatives, it draws a lot of attention. So all those individuals across Cisco are thinking about those creative ideas. Now, back to your point about how do you operationalize this, this is why the Eco Board has been so important from our perspective, because they've actually laid out a vision of where Cisco wants to go, which I think John articulated, but also a strategy, and a strategy that includes both what are we doing operationally to be a more efficient company? Second of all, what kind of a culture are we building across our employees for them to feel comfortable collaborating, to want to collaborate, to try to reduce travel expenses, to try to come up with better power-saving devices? Third, what kind of products are we developing? How can they help use energy more efficiently? And then I think most importantly is how can we build a network architecture, a network platform and solutions that allow our customers and governments to really embrace this technology for the reason of climate change and environmental impact. And that's really where developing these solutions, working these public-private partnerships and developing solutions is really where I think for a company like Cisco, the impact we have within our own walls will be important, but the impact we could have beyond and into the world could even be greater.
I think that you talk about the world, not just the United States and Europe, because I think one of the best questions that have been submitted comes from Ward in Sofia in Bulgaria, who asked this question, and it's a question that worries a lot of observers. Given the fact that China and India are developing so rapidly, are you optimistic? And I'll put this question to all three of you, to Mr. Gore first, if I may. Are you optimistic or pessimistic that business, government, and citizens can still do what we have to put the planet onto an even keel, given that growth in a country like China?
Well, I'm optimistic, but my optimism is based on the assumption that we are continuing to move toward a political tipping point beyond which we will see a dramatic change in the pattern that characterizes our response to this crisis. If I thought that the current rate of change was all we were going to have into the indefinite future, then I would be very pessimistic indeed. But I don't believe that. I have seen in 30 years of politics and public life, I'm a recovering politician, by the way, on about time, but I have seen during that period that there are times when the political system is like the climate system. It's nonlinear, meaning, of course, that it can cross that tipping point. It can suddenly change and move with great speed. I think we're getting closer and closer to that point. Some businesses have already reached that point, and they are finding, as John said earlier, that there are great collateral benefits. Pollution is waste. Waste is wasteful. When you eliminate the pollution, you become more efficient and more profitable. And it doesn't always happen that easily, but more often than not, it does. And if it's approached in the right way, that will happen. And we have no choice. We really have no choice. We have to find a way to move together. You know, there's an old African proverb that says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We have to go far, quickly, and go together quickly. And this technology that's being demonstrated here today, and the various technologies that are being discussed at VoiceCon, represent important tools to allow people to come together quickly and easily in order to chart a course to go far toward the big changes that we need to make. Now, for China and India and the other developing economies to vastly improve their prospects for changing, one thing is needed more than anything else. The United States of America, the largest economy, the most powerful nation, the natural leader in this world community. Forgive me, those in other countries, if I sound overly prideful as an American, but I think all of those things can be demonstrated as objective facts. This nation, the United States, must provide leadership. And so long as the U.S. has been dragging our feet and even pulling the world back from the progress that's so greatly needed, then it lets China and India and every other nation off the hook. So we're moving, and this is a presidential election year, as you may have heard. And all three of the remaining candidates, John McCain, the Republican nominee to be, and Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, the two remaining Democratic candidates, all three of them have positions very different from the current administration. The Congress is now moving rapidly. A dozen states have moved already on their own. Others are moving. More than 800 cities with Republican and Democratic mayors alike have independently endorsed and embraced the Kyoto Protocol. So the signs are very positive, but the path to change goes through the United States, a transition in January, and then the negotiation that will take place in Poland this December and Copenhagen the following December will complete a new treaty to follow the Kyoto Treaty, and then we'll have in place, with U.S. participation and even leadership on this matter, the kind of worldwide effort that I think China and India are going to find irresistible. They cannot stand outside the global consensus. I believe that they will join when the United States leads.
Let me ask John that as well. You have operations in China. Do you see the growth of China? People talk about a new coal power station every week. Do you see what's happening there as a threat to a solution to the climate crisis, or do you see it as an opportunity?
Well, I tend to be opportunistic in terms of when I see market transitions occur. And I've been doing business in China for 22 years and have known the government leaders throughout that time period. And China is a very predictable society. I think they will become the largest economic power in the world. And I think as long as it's a fair policy that we do on a global basis, we can find a way for the largest players in this environment to all move toward a common goal. And that's the key. You can't have one or two move and others not move. To your question, how